Hello, it's Wednesday, 9 p.m. here in Australia, an hour later because of the time differences around the world. And it's 11 a.m. in the UK and 6 a.m. in the US if you're on the New York side. Today I'm going to be talking to Leandra from LJV Coaching. We're going to talk about the 10 keys to happier living. So I hope you enjoy that. If you didn't listen last week to the podcast on Spotify and Apple, it was an interview with a cult specialist who's huge around the world. She's one of the best people if you need to know any information about cults. So go and listen to that podcast on Life Changes You podcast. I'm going to get Leandra in and we're going to discuss the 10 keys to happiness, and I'm just trying to remember how to do this. There we go. Invite. Yes, it is confusing time zones all around the world. There's Leandra.
Hi,
You're a little
Dan.
bit low.
Sorry, I've been mucking around with my cameras and stuff this morning, and so I'm going to grab a cushion. I'm going to sit on a cushion. How's that?
Better now. I can see you.
Yeah, I'm on the sofa today.
Hair.
We do. We're matching.
Yeah.
I love yours though. Not too
good,
bad.
Isn't it?
It's
change.
I love it. Yeah, it brightens up your nice face. You already got such a nice face, but it just brings those nice blue eyes out even more.
Well, I'll tell you something. I usually do use a filter which doesn't filter much, but apparently it's disappeared. So I was quickly trying to go through to see if I could find a better filter, but I'm just here now, 50. That's it. Except,
and
I've also
you look
got
great.
a yellow tooth. And that's because I'm having a bridge built. So if you see the yellow tooth, it's not because I've got an infection or something. I'm just having some dental work done.
Don't you worry about anything, Dan.
Well, for you, it's still 11 a.m., but for us over here now, it's 9 p.m.
Yes, yeah, it's crazy time zones. But thank you so much for inviting me onto this live today. I've been so looking forward to doing this with you.
Well, I actually couldn't think of someone better to do the 10 keys of happiness with, because you're always so happy and joyful when you're on.
Oh, thank you. That's a huge compliment. So thank you very much.
No, it's true. It's true. And all your updates and stuff is always so positive and happy. So, yeah, that's why you're here. That's why we're discussing happiness.
Thank you. Yeah, great topic. And yeah, I had a wee read over some of this information we obviously discussed and that when we speak about today. And yeah, there's a lot of stuff that I'd like to put my sort of spin on as well.
Yeah, go for it. Well, look, I mean, I don't usually use notes, and I usually say to people, I never use notes, but for the 10 keys to happiness, I have to use notes because there's no way on earth I can remember 10 keys. I should be able to. I've presented it so many times, but I still don't remember them all.
Yeah, I've listened to the podcast actually on the 10 keys to happiness on your podcast. It's been great.
Oh, yeah, because
I've
I did that a
listened to
few
it
years
before.
ago, didn't I?
You did, yeah. Yeah. I think it was last year, January, I think it was.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe that
Yeah.
was the repeat because I think I did it when I first started to try and find content to put out.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a great topic.
All right. So what's the acronym for the 10 keys to happier living? Do you know what it is?
Yeah, it is great dream.
And isn't that perfect for happiness? Great
Amazing.
dream.
Amazing. And I love acronyms because they actually are what help me remember things and what they stand for. Because I don't have the greatest of memory. I have a lot of brain fog, and I don't know if this is something to do with age or just maybe my mind is quite, overloaded at times because I'm studying as well. So I don't know. But when an acronym really symbolizes something for me, it sticks. It just stays.
Yeah, look, no, it's not just age, I don't think. I think brain fog is to do with illness. Well, probably to do with age as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're overloaded. We've always got so many things on, haven't we? So many things we're trying to remember. And then, we come to do something like this, and great dream. I should remember it all. And even though I just said it and looked at it, I still can't remember what great dream stands for. I know the first one is giving, but we'll get
Yeah.
through them all. Oh,
Yeah. So giving for, well, first of all, happiness. So I've written down a few notes because obviously memory, not the greatest. But for me, happiness is like just a contribution to people feeling more positive and achieving greatness. That's for me what sums up happiness.
right. So now I've got to sum up happiness as well. I didn't realize I was going to do that. Happiness for me
Sorry.
is just seeing people every day at work, at home, out in the street who are smiling, and
Mm,
and also happiness in people who probably aren't very happy but are still trying to get happy. Happiness is something, I guess everybody's striving for happiness, and we're
mm,
all looking for it in different ways. And for me, happiness, I guess, just comes from inside. If you feel good about things, you're going to be happy, and people are going to see you as happy. If you're
absolutely.
if you're living in a more negative world, not much is going to be happy because you're focusing on the negative rather than the positive.
Absolutely. And as human beings, we're wired to be negative thinkers. Um, so
Definitely.
it takes a lot of effort to build internal happiness. But when you rewire your thinking, your mindset, your lifestyle changes, the small changes become big things. And the big things become your new positive sort of habits.
Well, look, I had a guest on this season who's coming up in November called Rob Mack, and he is a
Uh-huh.
happiness coach in the States. And I read his book before I interviewed him, and it is so good and so easy to read. So if you're looking for a good book on happiness, Rob Mack, it was written in, I think, 2009, but it's a really good book.
Okay.
But otherwise, you can just
Yeah.
listen to the podcast in November and have a listen to what he says. He's like you. He's just a beautiful person with lots of information and happiness, and yeah, he was really good to talk to.
Great. No, I'll definitely put it on my book list because I have a number of books. The one of my favorite books was called Happy, by Darren Brown, the magician.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't know he wrote a book.
It's really good. He's actually, I think he's got a smaller pocket version called A Little Bit of Happiness, A Little Book of Happiness, if I'm right. I'll actually send you the link for the
Yeah.
correct name of the book. But that was one of the first books I read about happiness and finding internal happiness. And he speaks a lot about like mindfulness and just being fully present and the great gratitude, all these sort of things, the small things that we sort of
Yeah.
we don't intentionally miss them, but because we're not wired that way, we're not taught from a young age, so we don't program them into our everyday life. So he talks about just the reprogramming of self.
Well, look, I mean, he is amazing when you see him in his TV shows, and how
Yeah,
he shows you something, and then he goes back and shows you the steps that got to where the ending was, and you just go, "Oh my God, that is so easy to do."
yeah,
He's a master of the mind, isn't he? He really
yeah,
is.
yeah, absolutely.
All right, well, we better get into these 10 keys, because otherwise we'll be here at 10 o'clock. Well, I'll be here at 10 o'clock in the morning,
Oh
not 10
no.
o'clock tonight. So, the five first relate to how we interact with the outside world in our daily activities, and the
Mhm.
second five come from inside us and depend on our attitude to life.
Yes.
So, our first one is giving. Do things for others. Do you have a few examples of what we could do for others?
Yeah. So on my journey, so obviously my background story. I've gone through quite a few traumatic things. And I suppose the way I have found meaning in my life is by giving to others because
Yep.
I serve a purpose in giving. And when I serve a purpose in giving, I feel like an accomplishment, sorry, in myself. And I feel that I'm doing something to enable someone to feel better, but also seeing that joy gives me joy. So it's
Yeah.
sort of like the mirror effect of it. And one of the things that I really enjoyed giving was the giving of my time.
Yep.
And this was in voluntary work. So I worked in an old age home, and it was just wonderful to befriend the elderly because a lot of them have no family, have no friends, and you just spending sort of 5, 10 minutes asking them how are they, or just engaging with them, even having a game of cards or whatever.
Yeah.
I found this was so amazing, and I came away feeling so good. So sometimes I was actually looking forward to just going and being with them because I felt so uplifted by their
Yeah.
company.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, look, I can add to that because when I was younger, I used to work in an old people's home, and I just loved it. I just loved talking to them, hearing all their stories. And, I think in this society, we don't give older people enough time because their stories, they've been here longer than us. They know they've
Yeah.
been through worse things than us. And they understand a lot more than what we do. And we just go, oh, look at that old person, or poor old person. But they give so much. My mum has just recently been in hospital and she hasn't been that well. And one of the nurses said, oh, yeah, if you could come lunchtime and tea time, that would be fantastic for you, mum, to know people are around that love her and to help
Mm-hmm.
her feel better. And like, yep, no problem, that's fine. And she said, the problem is a lot of these people in here don't have anyone to visit them. And I
Mm-hmm.
just thought, God, how bad is that? These people have had an operation, they're in rehabilitation, and yet there's no one coming to support them, say, you're doing well, or, look at you today, you've got through this, there's no one
Yeah.
there for them. And it made me feel really sad, that my mum has two people going twice a day, and other people don't see anyone from week to week. There was a couple that came in on a Sunday, like, and visited, and it's like, oh, we've had such a busy week, but we better go in and
Yeah.
see Nan on Sunday. And Nan's been probably waiting all week to see them. But,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, what you're saying is true. I mean, we get so much out of spending time with older people, with helping people, we're
Mm-hmm.
giving our time to people. And I guess during COVID, we saw some of that. The neighbours rallied around each other, which was really
Yeah.
good because
Yeah.
usually you can go weeks without even seeing your neighbour, and then you'd see them over the fence and have a chat. And it was really nice. It was, I guess, not a community, but sort of like a community. People helped each other out.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the other thing is just by, sharing a smile. That's the one thing I always do every day when I
Come
go.
on, give us one of your big smiles. That's
That was a cheesy
fantastic.
one.
Oh, it's still good.
Yeah.
I was
Um,
really happy. And you could see the
yeah.
joy. That's what I say about you. You can see the joy when you're on. You're really happy. You're centered. You really know yourself, I guess.
It's taken time, but it's a possibility. And I love that you can see that in me because that is my purpose, is to give people joy and to give people happiness, but to also encourage them to believe in their own selves and believe in their happiness.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, every day when I step out the house, I always make it my mission to smile at, even if it's one person that day or two people, and just pay attention to your environment. That's part of the keys to happiness. We'll touch on that later on.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
my other favorite one is in the supermarket. The people on the checkouts, they always ask you, like, oh, good morning, good afternoon, how's your day? They
Yeah.
never expect anyone to ask them how they are. And
Yeah.
I make it an effort to ask them, how are you today?
Yeah.
And it
Because
kind
they're
of throws
spending
them
the
off.
whole day, aren't they? They're spending the
It
whole day
does.
just sitting there or standing there, serving everybody, and no one's really taking any time to ask how they are.
Yes. Yeah. And you'll see the energy change because they'll be so startled that, oh, someone's actually asking me, how am I feeling? And you see the smile comes from nowhere. It's like, oh, I'm
Yeah.
okay. It's a long shift, but they're smiling because you've asked them how they are, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's good. Yeah, look, giving, it says here, what do you do to help others? It's giving your time, your ideas, your energy, So you want to feel good, do good, and help others feel good in the same way.
Absolutely.
All right, our next one is relating, connecting with people.
Yes.
So people with strong and broad social relationships are happy, healthier, and live longer. Choose relationships with family and friends, provide love, meaning, support, and increase our feelings of self-worth. Broader networks bring a sense of belonging. So
Yes.
what matters
Yeah.
most to you with your connections?
Well, friendships, family, these are all very much part of my life. You know, it's a human nature to have connectedness. We're not designed to be alone. Like, yeah, some people like to live by themselves and or don't want to be in relationships, but generally they still have a good networks of like
Yeah,
friends, or work colleagues, you know, around them. And I think it's important for our survival and
yeah,
also for just keeping that sort of social skills up to sort of par. And it gives something back to us because it gives us these sort of feelings, you know, when you're around people and you have recognition and you really, it releases like chemicals within ourselves as well, good endorphins, happy endorphins, when we feel connected
yeah.
to people, you know, and even the physical aspect of it, when you are next to someone, even if you're not physically touching them, there's an energy field around all of us. And when we
Yeah.
integrate our energy fields, it can change the dynamics of how we're feeling, especially if that other person is on a happy, is on a high. It can definitely change how we're feeling.
Definitely. Yeah, look, relating to others is important, and yeah, whether you're in a relationship or not, you still need to be able to have that connection. And during COVID, I think a lot of people lost that connectedness with people. It was
Mm-hmm.
okay to call people, to do Zooms with them, but in the end, they just wanted someone to give them a hug or just, that human connection.
Yeah,
And also
absolutely.
see smiles as well, because everyone, when they were out, was wearing a mask all the time.
Yes, yeah. As you see, like now, all the babies that were born in the sort of COVID, the 2 years, are so not used to seeing people's faces that now when they're seeing people's faces, it's kind of like a shock to their system. It's like, you know, this isn't what they've been conditioned around. So it's like
Yeah.
changing all of that. So it will be interesting to see, like maybe 10, 15 years from now, how these children have developed or are developing in society and with their connective sort of skills.
It will also be good if in 15 years' time there's no more COVID, because we keep being told it's not around anymore and it still seems to be around everywhere.
I know, I know. It's one of those things. I think it's going to be around. You know, it's part and parcel. It's like flu. Eh? Flu is
Yeah.
it changes, it mutates, and
Yes.
it's about being adapted. You know, adapting
Adaptable.
to the environment. Yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah,
Well, our next one is exercising. Take care of your body. And that can be as easy as going for a walk, doing some exercise, I guess going to a nightclub and dancing with your friends.
yeah,
Um, Exercising doesn't always have to mean that you're at the gym every day or doing things like that. You can play a sport, you can join a walking group. There's lots of things you can do exercising that are quite easy, isn't there?
absolutely. Like the gym isn't for everybody, and that's absolutely fine. So, like you've mentioned, there, exercise comes in all forms, you know, walking. My favorite is walking. I go to the gym as well, but I'm not a gym bunny, so I'll go maybe twice a week or 3 times a week. But walking is a great one for me. But not only is it a form of exercise, it's a form of sort of releasing sort of brain smog, you know, when my
Yeah,
mind is overloaded. And yeah, with exercising, it relaxes the body. It also strengthens your body. It does so much for yourself, and it can contribute to things like sleep. It can contribute to just your well-being. And if you incorporate like a good diet with it as well, you know, eating well, taking care of your needs, like not too much alcohol and or smoking, these sort of things, it all contributes to happiness internally, how you're feeling inside. And then it expands externally as well, because people will see, oh, you look great. And then people are like, what are you on? What are you doing? And they want some of what you have. And it's a
Yeah.
good thing because you feel good, and it spurs you on as well, so you keep going when you feel that sort of encouragement as well.
It's something I need to do a little bit more of each day. I think walking.
Hmm.
I don't seem to have enough time, and I need to do some self care.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Finding time for yourself is important.
um, Psych Cafe, who's Fran, says, "Do you have any happiness books to recommend?" And Leandra just recommended Darren Brown's Happy.
Yes, I think it's called Happy. I will put it in the comments later on. Like, there's a couple of books that I
Okay.
can recommend. Yeah, definitely.
Yep. And the one I said, Fran, was Rob Mack, who I can't remember the full title, but it is something to do with happiness, and it's a really good book. Okay, we're moving on to appreciating. Notice the world around you. Ever felt there must be more to life? Well, good news, there is, and it's right here in front of us. We just need to stop and take notice. Learning to be more mindful and aware can do wonders for our well-being in all areas of life. And what I like about appreciating and mindfulness is that mindfulness can be done when you're doing your exercising, when you're walking, when you're listening
Hmm.
to the sounds around you. So a lot of these happiness skills are all interrelated, aren't they?
Absolutely. They are. It's like a little network. And when you join the
Yes.
dots, it makes the big picture of, what you want to accomplish.
And I guess appreciation comes under gratitude as well, doesn't it? So your gratitude journal, being grateful each
Yes.
day for things you have.
Yes, yes. Appreciation and awareness and yeah, gratitude, mindfulness, they all come together under the same sort of umbrella. So once you tap into that sort of every day waking up, just feel great to be alive, you know, that
Yeah.
starts your day. And then it
I
snowballs
ha-
into
I
a
had someone on
positive.
my sorry. I had someone on my podcast a little while ago who said that they are grateful every day that they wake up and they've got fresh undies in their drawer.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you don't like to
Which is
go
funny,
looking
but
through the laundry basket.
no. It is good, isn't it? All right,
Yeah.
so our last one in the first five is trying out. Keep learning new things. Now, you're obviously learning new things because you're studying.
Hmm. Yeah. Trying out is so important because not only does it give you joy and happiness, but it gives you stimulus. So when you try something new and it works for you, it stimulates you, and it again does has a like a medical or biological impact on you that's lasting, and it gives
Yep,
you purpose. So with me, like I'm studying counseling. It's taken me a wee while to get to wanting to study counseling. I knew it was always in the background, and I knew that it was something I always wanted to do, but I knew I had to work on certain things first. So it's about building your steps to get into where you want to be. And for me, it was small things, studying little things here and there. And it built me up to feel like,
yep,
okay, I'm ready for the next step. The other thing that really helped me is a book. I wanted to show you this book because I feel like a lot of people, when they reach sort of the age of 30, late 20s, early 30s, they sort of hit a block in their lives and
yep,
they're like, am I doing the right things? Am I feeling fulfilled in what I'm doing? And I sort of reached that point in my 40s, my early 40s. And there's this book I got, which I'll put in the title. It's Clifton Strengths, and it's a questionnaire, and you do a self-assessment on yourself, and you kind of see where your top five strengths are. It gives you up to about 38 strengths that we all incorporate, but it gives
yep,
you your top five, and those top fives reaffirmed to me who I knew I was at my core, but because of with conditioning and society and everything, we sort of diminish. We all know internally who we are and what we're capable of doing. But because we're told, we're judged, we're this, we're that, it diminishes that part of us. And what happened when I did that sort of assessment was it reignited all of that. And it reaffirmed to me that I was able to do what I wanted to do.
Yeah. Yeah, and look, that's it. I mean, trying out you could try ceramics, and if it doesn't work for you, it doesn't matter because you've tried something new. So your brain is learning new things. I
Yeah.
think a lot of people are hesitant to try new things because they're worried that they'll make a mistake or it won't go as planned. And I guess we all have that little bit in our head of, all right, so I'm going to start ceramics and I'm going to make a beautiful pot. And weeks
Yeah.
and weeks and weeks go by, you're using the wheel and nothing's happening. It's all just a blob in the middle. And then you give up. But it's the more time that you spend making that pot, and you could take years to finally get a pot. But imagine the
Mm-hmm.
elation and the happiness when you actually go, wow, this is my pot. And it still might not be a perfect pot, but you've got further and further. So trying things out and sticking with them, that's how we change our lives. I know, 20, 30 years ago, most people went and did a job and they stayed in that job until the day they died,
Mm-hmm.
or well, until they retired. Whereas nowadays we're
Yes.
more open to changing jobs, changing careers. I mean, I was 40 when I did my diploma in counselling and
Mm-hmm.
decided to try new things. And it was the best thing I ever did, because before that, I loved my job, but it wasn't fulfilling everything that I wanted. And what I wanted to do was counselling. And once I did that,
Yeah.
I started learning all this stuff, not just about other people, but about myself. And it made me see the world in a completely different way. Because before that, I was always like black and white thinking. And, I just don't think I really understood what goes on around me. But once you study something like counseling or psychology, or even just
Mm-hmm.
do some self-help books, read some self-help
Yeah.
books, you can understand more about yourself. And then that brings more happiness because you understand yourself better.
Absolutely. And trying new things, even with changing habits. If you know that
Yeah,
there's something that you have a bad habit and it has a negative impact on you, you can try replacing that habit with a healthier habit that will obviously give
yeah,
you a positive impact. And again, like going through self-help books or watching podcasts like yours or listening to your podcast and that sort of thing, very encouraging, because it changes your perception and on things, and you think things differently, and your mindset changes. And once you reprogram your mind, you reprogram everything about yourself and you evolve.
And what I think is important to just say about you, Leandra, is Leandra was on the podcast, I think about 6 months, 12 months ago. And if you're seeing her now and thinking, wow, look at this person, how amazing she is, go back and listen to the podcast. I mean, she was still amazing on the podcast, but here's some of the things that she went through. So if you're thinking, oh, I can't do that because this happened in my life, or I can't change that because that happened in my life, go and listen to Leandra's story because she faced so many things. And now she's out here now teaching or learning counseling, teaching positivity. And so the change around, Leandra could have stayed in your space, couldn't you, of where you were and just
Yeah.
gone, oh, well, this is my life. I can't change anything. But you didn't. You changed everything around in a major way. Did we do 2 podcasts or was it one podcast and a couple of lives?
We did a podcast and we did a live about it. Yeah. So, yeah, thank you for bringing that up about my story and for actually interviewing me as well. And definitely, you can be the victim or the victor of your trauma.
I love that.
Uh, and I chose to be the victor, and I've chosen to use my story to inspire and to help people and just to be that beacon of light and hold space for them. And anyone can do it. You don't have to have super social skills or degrees to achieve what I've achieved so far. You can do it. You just
Yeah,
have to believe in yourself and take that step forward and strip everything back about what society will say. People will talk anyway. People will talk
yeah,
about whether you're successful or you're not successful. They will still talk. And the thing is
yeah,
about being resilient to that, and letting that sort of bounce off you, or actually letting it build you up, because sometimes criticism can help us pull ourselves out of a funk and decide, no, this isn't me. And yeah.
and it can make you stronger, which is what happened to you. And that's why, I think if people go back and listen to that and see you now, they'll go, wow, look at this transformation. And it didn't happen in a couple of weeks. It's taken you time, but you've
Yeah,
worked towards that. And anyone who wants to change anything, you can work towards it. We don't need to live in the world where it needs to be instant. I know that's sort of the thing now with Instagram and all social media is this is what I look like. This is what I'm doing. Oh, look at me. I'm fabulous. Fabulous can
hmm,
take 10 years, 5 years, 20 years. It's about what you want to achieve, and it's your personal journey and your personal goals. And you shouldn't let other people, like you're saying, uh, uh, either interfere or put you down about that. Because generally, when someone's putting you down about something you're doing to better yourself, it's because they wish they had the balls to do what you're doing.
absolutely. I agree with that 100%, Dan.
And
Yeah.
look, I'll say as well, look, when I first started doing the podcast and that, and I started doing lives, I was like, God, I don't want to do a live. Look at me, I'm old. But as I kept doing it, now I don't care. If people don't like me, don't watch the lives. That's up to you. I'm not saying you have to watch it. We just come on here each week and put out positivity, mental health, psychology, anything that's relevant to help you have a better life. So if that helps
Absolutely.
you, then that's good. And look, I learn from you while we're talking. You probably learn some stuff from me. And
Hmm.
it's a learning tool for everybody. It's up to you
It
what you
is.
take from it.
It's
Psych Cafe
amazing.
Fran, she's
Hmm.
done the hand signal like this and says, thank you, this podcast. Happy to be here. Alison said, how about 57, 57, 67, 77? You can always change what you want to do in your life, and you can always look at different things. I had a friend who, it was a few years ago, she must have been in her mid 60s, and she
Uh-huh.
went back to do a degree in psychology, and she passed. And I said,
Hmm.
what are you going to do with that? And she said, nothing. I just wanted to learn something.
Yeah,
And that's it, isn't
absolutely.
it? It's about
Age,
learning.
yeah, age is just a number. Like
Yeah,
I think we spoke about this before in like a conditioning sort of topic, and we spoke
yeah,
about we're conditioned to count, to navigate through life by counting by age and that sort of thing. But really, in reality, you can be 57 and still have the mindset or the body, the agility of someone younger. But it just
yeah,
depends on how you're having that sort of happiness, that internal happiness. It all comes down to that and the
yeah.
relationship you have with yourself. So it's all about self-belief, and if you have limiting beliefs on yourself, you put limitations.
Yeah, look, I don't know if you saw the one last week with Holly. We talked about self-limiting beliefs. And,
Yes.
I came away from that afterwards, even though I'm involved in the discussion, thinking, wow, actually, yeah, I still have some things that I believe I can't do. And if I work on them, I can change them to I can do it. Grey
Yeah,
Wolf has just said being educated or learning new things has no age barrier, which is perfect because there is
100%.
no age barrier. There's a doctor. I can't. No, he's a scientist, and he's in his late 80s, and he's still working. And I thought, wow, that's amazing. I mean, I don't know what people think of the American president Joe Biden, but look how old he is, and
Hey,
he's still working.
exactly. I mean, when you look at people like David Attenborough, I mean, he's
Oh yeah,
passionate about what he does. And look at him, he knows all his facts because he's so passionate. And once you derive passion in what you're doing and you're happy with it, it is just, it oozes out of you. You don't even have to think about it, it just oozes out of you.
yeah. Happiness just keeps coming, doesn't it? And I think he's in his late 90s now.
He is, yes. Uh-huh.
All right, so we've just gone through the part great of the 10 keys to happier living. And actually, if
Yes.
anybody's watching and wants to find out more, you can go to the Action for Happiness website. I think they've got a site in the UK, which is their main one, but they also have one in Australia. And you can download loads of important information about being happier, and most of it's all free.
Yeah.
And Leandra and I are just going through it to give you an idea of what's in it. And to explain some of them so you can go away and have a look and see what else you want to do. Alison says, thank you. You are right. Alison, anything you want to do,
Oh.
you can do. You just, if look, who said, if you can dream it, you can do it? There's someone famous who said that. And
Yeah.
it's true because when I did my counseling, I had wanted to do that for years, and I became ill, and that's how I could do it. But I always wanted to do it. Once I'd done that, I've gone on to other things and better things and different things. And I'm nearly 52, and I don't see myself slowing down. Probably I don't even see myself retiring, because there's always something that I'm interested in, reading about, looking at, finding out about. I'm always watching documentaries, because there's always stuff I
Yeah,
can learn from that. So as long as we keep learning and keep being, I guess, our own cheerleader in our own life, we can't really go backwards.
absolutely. And when you have that sort of, you see, for me, I'm very inquisitive about life, about things, and I need to know stuff, but not knowing stuff
Yeah,
for a selfish sort of way, but knowing stuff to share knowledge. And I
yeah,
really love that. And I think you're the same, Dan. I think you like to know stuff to share. And I
yeah,
think it gives us a sense of purpose. We feel like, oh, we're contributing to the same, coming back to like connectedness. You're contributing to your connection with people around you
yeah.
and sharing your knowledge, because knowledge is power. And it can help so many people out there.
Well, look, I'm just going to tell you on here, because the mind tradie's just come in, who is I've forgotten your name now, mind tradie, Jamie, and
Uh-huh.
we've done a couple of lives on here, and we've
Yeah.
done a couple of, well, I interviewed him, and then we just did a special to come out in the podcast this week, where we talked about the stigma around mental health. And what was really good about this is I've met all these people from all around the world that I talk to on a weekly basis, but I've never met anyone in real life. And he and I went to the studio, recorded, went out for dinner, and it was amazing, because
Nice.
it's almost like when you're talking to people like I'm talking to you, it's like, uh, I don't know, it, and I know this might sound a bit silly, but it's almost like you're a star, and oh, I've met this star, and I talked to this star,
Yeah.
and then when you meet them in real life, you're actually a little bit fanned out by it, like, oh, I met this person.
Absolutely. There's a guy that I follow on here and he follows me back. Is John Kirsters. He does like breath work, the Wim Hof method and that. And I was out buying coffee in Edinburgh and I jumped out my car and he was across from a car and he looked over at me and I looked over at him and I was like, I know that guy from somewhere. And he was thinking the same thing and we walked towards each other and he goes, you're that lady. You actually look like yourself in real life. And we started speaking. Yeah, it was so funny. And since then, we've
What's his
become
name on here?
John Carstairs.
Oh, okay,
I'll
because I had another guy
yeah.
who's coming on who does breath work. And I thought
Okay.
it might have been the same one. And do you know what? You can really pick your Scottish accent when you say lady.
I know
You
it
don't
just
really
comes
pick it
in.
until you said lady, and it was like, wow, that's Scottish. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a woman of international linguistics, I say, because I pick up languages and accents and everything just comes, it flows through me. So yeah.
Can you say lady one more time?
Lady.
Yeah, it's very, very Scottish, isn't it? Lady. No, that's not it. But yeah, I used to. Anyway, we've still got 5 to go, and we're running short on time on the satellite.
Okay.
So
Right.
our next one is direction. Have goals to look forward to. So what goals do we need? Any goal. Any
Any goal.
goal would be great to start. Actually, the Mind Tradie just says, was great to meet you in real life, Dan. Oh, thanks, mate.
Ah, sweet.
Yeah, direction. So setting goals. Why are setting goals important, Leandra?
Goals are important to achieve things. So, especially when you have mind blocks and you're thinking, I can't do this. When you put it down on paper and you look at it every day, it's almost like a vision board, the way a vision board works. Things start to manifest, things start to take effect. And the best way with sort of direction is stepping small, taking one small step at a time and not jumping from A to B, big leaps, because that's where we sort of crash and burn. But if
Yeah,
we follow the process, so you start small, and direction can start like with habits, like we were speaking earlier on. One small thing in the morning, get up, maybe do a meditation for 3 minutes, 5 minutes, or even just do a gratitude morning, where you wake up and say, I'm thankful for the air that I'm breathing in that's keeping me alive. These small things. And then it builds
Yeah.
up to bigger things and bigger things. And it's all about brain training. So yeah, setting goals is so important. I mean, I keep my kids, they laugh at me because I go through notebooks and notepads like crazy because I write so much stuff down and I like to write like goals and I like to write visions and plans. I have so much going on in my head that I need to
Right.
offload it and put it down. And then when I come back and I read it, like I was reading something I wrote about 3 years ago, I found in one of my journals, and this thing actually manifested into this year. And this is something I wrote down 3 years ago. And I thought to myself, wow, look at that. I actually did it. I did it. And the
Yeah.
joy that I got when I read that, the feeling, the sensation, yeah. So it's important to have direction.
It is. And look, as you say, goals don't have to be, I mean, you can do a 5 year plan if you want, but you need to
Hmm.
have those smaller goals that you can start achieving. And I'm not saying things that you know you can achieve in 2 days, but things that are smaller that you can work towards. And as you gradually get through those smaller goals, then you'll start making bigger ones and you'll process different and things you'll do. I mean, look, when I first started doing the podcast, I think I was pretty good at talking at the time anyway. But as
Yeah.
I've gone through the years, I've become better at knowing what to say, when to stop, when to listen.
Hmm.
And I guess you get a lot more professional because it's the journey, not the journey, it's the steps you take to get from A to B. If you said it was A to Z, there's a lot of steps in the middle, and all those steps are ones where you learn lots of stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
I've learned stacks from starting the podcast, even little things like changing my intros and things like that, because
Mm-hmm.
you're always working towards making a better version of what you're doing and a better
Absolutely.
version of ourselves as well.
Absolutely. And it gives us fulfillment, when you actually see from where you started to where you are now, that's where you feel the joy and the happiness in the accomplishment, sorry.
The Brave Mind HQ has said so many benefits with setting goals, no matter how big or small. And her said, happy, happy. That's good. And Psych
Thanks.
Cafe, feeling happy, grateful, and motivated to greet the day. Thank you for this podcast. There you go.
Thank
So
you.
it's good. So direction, have we covered direction well enough there?
I
Setting
think
goals,
so.
small goals, bigger goals, and then working towards them. And look, not all goals are going to be simple. Might have to sit down and work out how you're going to get there, but little steps in
Yeah.
between your goals will get you to the goal that you want to do.
Absolutely. And sometimes we have setbacks and we shouldn't look at the setback as a failure. A setback is something to learn from, because you can change, you can tweak your goal, so if it's not working this way, right? Okay, we're going to take a step back, we're going to regroup, and then we're going to go forward again, but we're going to take a step maybe in this direction. So setbacks shouldn't just say, right, this is it, I'm packing this in. No, take learning from it and restock and regroup. And sometimes we do need a step back in order to just focus and regroup and, just reaffirm to us where it is we're really going or getting to.
Yeah, yeah. Look, that's so right. And sometimes in what we perceive as a failure is an opportunity to reflect and look back on what didn't go quite so well, what did go well, and probably look for strengthening those things that didn't go well and working out a way to change them. Now, Rodney has just said, "Hi guys, I would like to get some detail for changing my life from anger. If you want to send me a DM or one to Leandra." Um, I'm happy to help you on what you need to do.
Absolutely.
Uh, and then he says, I would probably be happy in life without having this anger. Yeah, send one of us a DM and we'll get back to you and let you know what we can help you with. The Braver Mind HQ says help build self-trust and confidence, which will then help us to deal with unexpected situations.
Mhm.
Perfect. Resilience, find
Great.
ways to bounce back. Now, this is a hard one, isn't it? Because things like a death in the family, relationships split up, things like that can be really hard to find ways to bounce back. How do we
Absolutely.
bounce back?
You know, resilience is a very important part of everyday life. especially because we are programmed to set ourselves up for like an expectation.
Yeah.
So when we change that mind frame to say, anything can happen, today I jump in the car, like you think, okay, I'm going to jump in the car, I'm going to get to work on time, because you've already set that expectation that you'll be there on time. But then there's an accident on the way. And then you're so frustrated, you're angry, you get to work, you're just flustered, it's ruined your whole day. But if you jumped in that car and you have the mindset that's like, I'm going to work, I'm going to try and make it to work on time today, an accident happened, you say, this is out of my control. In that sitting moment, you affirm to yourself that this is beyond my control. I'm only here doing what I can. And therefore
Yeah.
it's not me that has caused me to be late. And it's sort of taking stock with yourself and the awareness around, building these sort of healthier mindsets in situations. I'm one of these people that I've taught myself resilience from a young age because
Yeah.
of things that have happened to me.
Yeah.
And it's okay to feel down. It's okay to feel sad because we have to embody, embrace emotion in order to process it. Because if we don't, if we suffocate it and stifle it, it surfaces in a trauma. It surfaces
Yeah.
in an action, whatever we're doing. Just don't stay there for too long when you're in that sad place. So if I'm having a bad day and I know that it's going to be a bad day, I just accept it's a bad day today, but tomorrow is going to be a different day. And I'm going to change my mindset. And that's how I bounce back quite quickly from sort of situations or challenges.
And as you say, it's okay when something bad happens to spend a bit of time in that and
Yeah.
understand what happened, grieve through it, work through it, and then you usually will find your own way to bounce back from that. And it might be a friend that helps you, it might be seeing something online, it could be a comedy show you watch on TV that lifts your mood that little bit. Resilience, it can be hard. I mean, as I said before, your podcast, if anyone listens to that, they'll see how your resilience shone through because you went from some stuff that no one will go through to coming out where you are now. And the resilience you must have had to keep going. And you might have had setbacks when you started going and fall back and
Mm-hmm.
then go again. But that's the process, isn't it? It's not about jumping from A to B, from sad to happy. There's a lot of
Yeah.
emotions in that middle bit. When we lose
Yes.
someone, when I lost my dad last year, at first I was angry and I pretty much went through the 5 stages of grief because I was
Grief. Yeah.
angry and I was disappointed and how could this happen? But eventually you work through it and then you sort of focus more on the happier times. So I guess it's also refocusing to build your resilience. What were good things
Yes.
that came before? And I just wanted to say also to that, to Rodney, who asked about he would like to be happier and in life without his anger. Do you know what,
Mm-hmm.
Rodney? I forgot to say this before, but acknowledging that you have anger and you want to change to be happier is your biggest step that you're making
Yeah.
because it shows that you want to be happier, that you want to change your life. And that's what a lot of people miss out on. They don't understand why they're angry or why they're not happy. You have. And so you can
Mm-hmm.
move forward from that now because you've already understood, look, I have anger and how do I make it that my life is happier? And that's some stuff that I'm happy to help you with, and Leandra would be happy to help you with, to help you change your life in a more positive direction. And it might not be a week, it might not be 6 months, it might take you years to change what's happening, but we
Yeah.
can all change and it can be done.
Absolutely. There is someone I'd like to mention that I follow on here. She's a resilience coach. Her name is Pinky, and she's amazing. She's on Insta, and she gives a lot of good tips and helps people with coaching that way as well.
And also, someone just joined us there. Sarah Stevenson Inspires. I did a podcast with her a little while ago, which came out not last week, the week before, and she's an Olympian. And
Hmm.
she won a bronze medal for Taekwondo. And she had a broken foot in the fight, or a broken hand. Sorry, Sarah, I forget. I think it was a broken foot. And she still continued. And if you listen to that, she explains resilience and mindset and how to get through things and how to change the way you think about things. So It was a brilliant. I
Wow.
was so pleased to speak to her because, you know, how many athletes, Olympic athletes, unless you're, you know, the number one podcast on the planet, will come on and have a chat. And she came on and chatted, and the feedback's been brilliant. Like lots of people have
Wow.
felt really inspired by what she spoke about. So thank you, Sarah, again. The Braver Mind HQ says, so important to let our emotions in, acknowledge them, and then release them.
Yeah.
Perfect. Perfect.
Brilliant.
All right. What were we up to? Emotion.
Emotions, yes.
So take a positive approach. I think we covered this a little bit earlier when you were saying that we're usually, well, 9 times out of 10, people are programmed to think of the negative before the positive.
Mm-hmm.
And a couple of weeks ago on a live, I was talking to two people, and we did this test, and I said, all right, tell me 5 things that are positive about your life. And they were like, blah, 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 blah. I said, tell me 5 bad things. And they were like, oh, well, this, and this. I go,
Yeah.
see, it works because that's how we're programmed. We always think of the negative things about ourselves when we should be
Yeah.
focusing on all the positive things. Because the more we focus on our positive, the more positive we become.
Absolutely. Yeah, with emotions, when I think about emotions, I always think about gratitude and about just being happy for life, being grateful for life. That's my foundation.
Yeah,
And then acknowledging my emotions because, again, conditioning when we're younger, boys, you're taught not to show emotions, to be strong, to be tough. Women are taught to just to be mums and have babies and these sort of things. And you're never really taught about feelings, and acknowledging feelings. And it's something that I encourage with my children to talk about their feelings and tell me how they're feeling and acknowledge them and not suppress them, because I know with suppressant, it just manifests into something bigger, in
yeah,
terms of relationships, in terms of communication. So yeah, emotions, we look for all the good, even in the bad. So when something's gone wrong, we question ourselves and say, right, why has this gone wrong? Has it gone wrong for my benefit or for someone else's benefit? Maybe, maybe a trip gets cancelled short notice and you feel
yeah,
so angry and frustrated and let down.
yeah.
And then you hear on the news that that aeroplane crashed or whatever. You then think, maybe there was some good in this bad thing that I felt temporarily. It's about looking at those things. That's a very dramatic sort of example.
Yeah, I was
But,
thinking that you're going from this to
yeah,
this.
yeah, it's very dramatic example. But I guess sometimes I'm quite dramatic. I like to give like a big thing and then I come back to the little thing. But looking for good in bad situations every day, finding the gratitude in these negative things and sitting with them and coming back to sort of the acceptance around them.
Yeah, definitely. Look, Braver HQ said, the Brave Mind HQ, sorry, said we naturally have a negative bias, and yeah, it's what we do. In that book I was telling you about, I read by Rob Mack. It 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 goes through all the things that we're taught about negativity and how to embrace positivity by doing more and
Mm-hmm.
more positive things each day and noticing that you're doing those positive things, and then I guess with the emotions, feeling your emotion, feel your anger, feel your happiness, and then work out why that anger has come up and what's caused it. What is the thing that's manifested that anger? And we do a scale of 1 to 10 of the worst thing that can happen and not so something that's not so bad. But to everybody, it's a different scale. So we still do 1 to 10, but um, like I might think the worst thing that could ever happen to me was, I don't know, all my hair fall out. And someone else might think that it's their parents dying. And someone else might think divorce. And someone else might
Mm-hmm.
think if they lost their job. So even though we've got that scale, it still is dependent on the person because we all see life differently. And some things are more important to others.
Absolutely.
Psych Cafe just said, I didn't know negativity was natural. Yes, it's very natural. It's something that everybody has, but there are ways to turn it around into a more positive outcome. And if you, it's like Cafe Fran, if you're thinking that you have a lot of negative things you think about during the day, you're the same as 99% of the people on the planet. We generally will think of a negative thing about ourselves or something going on around us rather than a positive thing. It's just how we're programmed, and we need to change that, and we can change that. Listen to
Yeah, it's just
Leandra
because of
talk about happiness.
it's the influence that we're fed with, isn't it? Every time you watch the news, how much it's more negative stuff than it is positive. They don't share good stories. They share all the rubbish that's going on around us. So we're absorbed by this sort of bubble. And that's why I don't watch the news and I don't
Nor do
follow
I.
certain things because it really impacts. And you find yourself slowly becoming this box of unhappiness and grumpiness. And all you do is moan all day. And then you start to think, oh, this moaning, it's actually quite a nice thing. And you attach to that. And
Yeah,
so someone asks you, how are you today? Oh, I'm okay because this happened, and you focus on the negative. You never say,
yeah.
"Oh, I'm happy." And if someone says to you, "Oh, why are you happy today?" "Oh, the sun is out." People don't focus on those sort of things because it's not the natural way we've been taught from a young age.
And I think it also happens in gossip, like people gossiping about a TV show. Yes, there's good things. Oh, did you see that? That was really good. But oh, did you see what that woman was wearing on that show? Did you see what that guy was doing in that TV show? We almost pick on the negative thing because it's
Mm,
something that we know that everybody's going to go, oh, yeah, I saw that. I didn't like that. That was terrible, wasn't it?
yeah.
So
Mm.
it's just how we're programmed. And gossip is one of those things. I guess you can have good gossip. I don't really know. I don't gossip.
We just gossip about positivity.
Yeah, that's all I gossip about. I just gossip all day about positive things. So our next one is acceptance. Be
Mhm.
comfortable with yourself.
Absolutely. And this is a very hard one for everybody because people want to be perceived as being perfect in the eyes of social media, in the eyes of other people, when really people will accept you just as you are. People will talk, like I said, people will talk about everything, whether it's good or bad. The thing is about being comfortable with who you are. And when you come to that sort of authentic living, and it took me years to get to that point. And I think for me, because I'm quite a spiritual person, I just connected and tapped within myself and realized, I was suppressing myself for the benefit
Yeah,
of other people. And when you come to that conclusion in life about I'm not living this life for others. I'm living this life for myself.
yeah,
It changes. The narrative switches up, and you start to see things in a different light. You start to have a different perception on life and how you want to live. Like one of my greatest icons is Madonna. Like people think she's very controversial, but 99% of the time, that woman is just herself.
yeah.
Yeah.
She is. Yeah, she
Yeah.
she she doesn't care what anyone else thinks. And I've had this conversation with my mum who has Parkinson's, and
Uh-huh.
sometimes when we're going out for dinner or something, she'll go, "What if people look at me? What if they think, oh, why is she shaking?" And I go, "Mum, that's the biggest thing you need to get over." Because
Yeah.
99% of those people you're going to see aren't even interested in what you're doing. They're interested in what they're doing. They don't care. They're not looking at you. But, I guess it's something that she's held on to for her 80 years. How will people perceive me? How will people think I am? It's just irrelevant, isn't it? It's
Yeah. It
irrelevant what
is.
other people think. I mean, I guess if you're seeing a doctor and the doctor says to you, I think you got something wrong with you, then we'd listen to them. But
Mhm.
really, is there anyone else? Oh, look, I guess we need to listen to the police and people like that. But people in the street, people that we bump into, people at a party who might go, oh, you're a bit overweight or you look a bit old, blah, blah, blah. Who cares? That's your
Yeah.
perception of what I look like, not mine. I'm quite happy with how I am. I'm comfortable in my skin. I'm happy with who I am. And I think I do a lot of great for the world. So whatever you think, I don't really care.
Yeah. And you said something very important there, Dan, about half of the time people don't even care about what you're worrying about. They haven't even
Yeah.
noticed that. That's the sort of story you've told yourself, you
It's our
know?
narrative, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes also it's those intrusive thoughts that come in and go, oh, I bet they think you look stupid. And you're thinking, do
Mm.
I? Do I look stupid? No, it's just one of those thoughts that pops in and goes out, because intrusive thoughts, look, there's so many things that we have in our little brains that go on every day. Intrusive
Yeah.
thoughts is one of those ones that, you know, will make you unhappy if you believe them, but 99% of those ones are not even worth thinking about.
Absolutely. And stuff like journaling and that can help because when we offload it from our mind and put it into like a book or whatever, it can sort of help the process with self-acceptance because you can come back and read that like a week later. And because you've been offloading and you've been influencing from listening to good podcasts or reading good books or whatever, and you come back and you're like, oh my gosh, that's what I was thinking about, and you're like, oh, that's so silly. Why did I even think of that? It looks, once you come back to it and give that sort of self-analysis, it can help you shift, and jump and move your change your perception about life and about things. Yeah.
Definitely. And look, it's the same with anger as well. Like if you get an email from someone and it's like it makes you really angry and you think, right, I'm going to reply to them. Reply at the end of the day or tomorrow, because by then you'll have a clearer thinking of what's going on, and then you'll be able to answer it more succinctly than just, oh, I hate what you just said to me, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, looking back at things and having a bit of analysis, self-reflection, opens our minds up to other possibilities that at the time we didn't think were possible, because we just
Yeah.
believed that that thought we had at that time was exactly how it was. Whereas even usually an hour afterwards, you go, well, why did I think that? That's not me.
Yeah, absolutely. Impulsive response. A lot of
Impulsive
us,
response.
yeah,
Yeah.
we tend to do that. But when you practice more things with your mindfulness and your grounding and that, you tend to slow things down. And that's why it's so important for mindfulness to do a little bit of this practice daily. Like even if it's 3 minutes, 5 minutes, it just processes things better for you, and you can get a better idea about dealing with certain things and emotions, handling things better.
Yeah. Well, look, in unhelpful thinking styles where we have black and white and catastrophic thinking, one of them is jumping to conclusions. And it's the people
Mm.
who just go, oh, well, I think this is going to happen when there's no basis for it, but you've just thought that that's going to happen because that's what you think the conclusion of whatever has happened is going to be. And
Yes,
99% of the time, there's a lot more options out there than what you think is going to happen. All right.
absolutely.
Meaning, be part of something bigger. This one's like you said
Absolutely.
earlier, volunteering, helping your community, helping your neighbor, give
Yeah.
your life meaning, join a group, a community.
Yeah, I mean, be part of a big thing, like I'm supportive of what you do, Dan. I love what you do. I love the podcast because it gives me like a meaning. Like every day you listen to something, you learn something. Every day is a learning day. So I wake up, if I listen to your podcast, that day I've taken something of importance, and I meet someone. And for me, I don't believe in coincidence. I believe everything happens for a reason. And it would have been a meaningful thing to listen to your podcast because then I meet someone that's probably talking about something that was on your podcast, and I'll say, you know what? I was listening to this podcast this morning by this guy, and it was amazing. Why don't you go and listen? And you've shared that information, and later on, that person comes back and says, "Wow, that was amazing. Yes, I just needed that." And it gives you that sense of meaning. You've like shared something so relevant that can
Yeah.
just change someone's life.
And look, that's why I did the podcast in the first place, to speak to people about their lives that can then be passed on to other people. And, you might listen to a 45-minute hour conversation on the podcast, and you might only take 2 minutes of what was spoken about out of that, but go, oh, actually, what they were saying there, that's what's happening in my life. Or
Hmm.
I could do what they're doing, or I could try this. I have a range of guests on from 18 to, I think my oldest one was 77, which was the one
Wow.
from last week. And
Yes.
this woman who's 77, um, Yanya
Hmm.
Lalik, who is the cult specialist, she retired 2 years ago. And she said, since I retired, I'm doing more work. I'm writing a book. She's starting up a charitable organization for people who have left cults.
Yes.
And she's an amazing woman. What an inspiration. 77
Wow.
and not slowing down. And she said, Dan, I need at least another 10 years of life to be able to get everything done that I want to do at this moment. She said, but every
Wow.
week more things come up. And if you want to have a look at this lady, she's in nearly every cult documentary because she's the biggest specialist. And there was one last week that was on Netflix about the Sarah Lawrence cult in
Oh
America.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and she was in there and she was talking about it. And this woman is fascinating because any question you ask her about a cult, she just knows it. She knows about coercive control. She knows
Mm.
about brainwashing. She is amazing. So if you haven't
Wow.
listened to that, go to Spotify and listen to the last podcast because this woman is really worth listening to.
That's on my
Sorry,
list. No, it's
I
my
was
Sunday
waffling on.
list.
I was waffling on
No,
because you were telling me how great my podcast was.
it is. No, it is like every Sunday is my podcast day. Like when I want to listen to long podcasts, I listen to podcasts every day, but like yours is on my list on a Sunday. So I normally go back and I see what I've missed, or I go on your page and I see what I've missed and I catch up. And I love it because Sunday is sort of like my lazy day. So I just stick the headphones in. TV can be on in the background, kids are doing their own thing or whatever, but I'm getting information. And for me, it's like I'm starting my week ahead. I'm giving my kickstart to my week because I'm planting
Yeah.
seeds in my mind, in my life. And those are manifesting in my week to come. So things will come up generally that I've listened to in a podcast on a Sunday through the week. And it's
Wow.
a little seed of information for someone. It's some information for myself. It's some growth for myself, some learning. So yeah, I'm grateful for what you do.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Look, that's great. I mean, I still love doing the podcast 3 years on, 178 episodes. And there's so many great people coming on this month. Not this month, next month. Like I said, Rob Mack, who is the happiness coach
Yes.
in America. He's taught Oprah, so many big people in America, and he's just amazing. And I spoke to him for over an hour about happiness, and then I've got a guy who was on Big Brother here in Australia called Tim. He talks about his
Hmm.
recent diagnosis of autism. He's about
Okay.
35, about how when he came out, it was a big hoo-ha. Um, I can't remember who. Oh, and not this week. This week I've got Jamie, the mind tradie. Next week I've got a woman who grew up in a cult,
All right.
and what happened to her, and that's quite traumatic. Well, it's very traumatic. It
Hmm.
Some of the stuff that happened to her reflects on what your life was like when you were younger. Um,
Hmm.
but obviously, it's taken her a long time to get. But it's such a positive story because when you hear from
Wow.
what she came from to what she's doing now,
Hmm.
and you
Hmm.
can follow her page on here, End the Silent Epidemic, Help Youth Suicide. That's her mission in life now.
Okay.
So like you, she's changed something awful into something brilliant and is
Yeah.
helping others again. So, you know, I'm blessed with all the different people who come on my podcast because there's so much diversity, so many different stories, so many different conversations. And, I just sometimes when I've talked to someone, I leave and I'm like 2, 3 hours later going, oh my God, that was amazing talking to that person
Yeah.
because I
Yeah.
learned so much from the people I talk to.
But you also provide the platform for people to give the voice, for people to share the story. And it's so you are serving in your purpose and you're giving so much meaning to people like myself as well, to reach out there and help others, through your platform. So yeah, fantastic work
Well,
that
but
you're
we,
doing.
we all work in unison because what I'm doing, I mean, talking to you, that's great. More people will go and see you. Some of your people will come and see me. And that's how
Yes.
we build a better mental health system, more acceptance of everybody, a more positive outcome for everybody. If we're all working together and not going, oh, no, I interviewed that person, you can't interview them. We're all here doing the same thing. So if we can all share each other around and build a better place, well, that's a great mission, isn't it?
It is, and it's number one on our 10 keys to happiness in giving.
It is. Well, there you go. How good are you to bring it back to the topic? That's brilliant.
Oh, thank you
All
so
right.
much, Dan. It's been lovely
Ah,
to see
it was
you.
brilliant. It was just nice to catch up with you again.
Yeah.
So
We'll
if you're
speak
listening out
soon.
there, it's called The Great Dream, 10 Keys to Happier Living. Hopefully you've learned some stuff from us. You can also go to theactionforhappiness.org and you can find out some more information from them. Okay, thank you, Leandra.
Thanks,
I'll
Dan.
see you again soon.
Take care. Bye bye.
Right, bye.